Hi everybody, this is Agnes from Sediment, and today let's open, taste and see what is so special about Stag S.L.V Wine Cellars Cabernet Sauvignon S.L.V. Why is this wine so legendary? To find out, we must go back 5 decades. Stag S.L.V Wine Cellars was established in 1970 by Warren Winiarski, who was of Polish descent. He was so passionate about what he did and what he wanted to achieve that he made history, as we will see later. The S.L.V vineyard, planted by Winiarski also in 1970, became famous with harvest of 1973. These only 3-year-old wines and their fruit made history in blind tasting, now famously known as Judgement of Paris, which was organized by the late Steven Spurrier in 1976. It was considered mad at the time because some of the France and really world's greatest wine labels would be tasted blind alongside less known and newly developing wines of California. The judges were some of the leading experts in wine industry, and most of them French. Wines tasted at that event were Bordeaux-style Cabernet Sauvignon-based wines and Burgundy-style Chardonnay wines. And to a great surprise of everyone at the time, Stag S.L.V Wine Cellars S.L.V Estate Cabernet Sauvignon 1973 received the highest score, leaving behind such names as Mouton Rothschild and Aubryon. Originally, when Californian winemaking scene was just starting to develop, the area of Stag S.L.V on the eastern side of Napa was mostly used for growing other crops and was not closely associated with wine. A few wines were planted, but they were not the most quality-oriented grape varieties. Currently, Stag S.L.V district is home to some of the most sought-after and prestigious estates of Napa. And actually, one of the very first to discover the potential of this area was Nathan Fay, and his original vineyard, Fay, currently neighbors the famous S.L.V vineyard. Nowadays, the S.L.V plot does not contain these original wines anymore. I have looked up and it seems that the oldest wines in the S.L.V vineyard are from 1972, Block 4. Followed by 1993 and 1995 plantings. The S.L.V soils are a mixture of volcanic and alluvial, and while summers can be quite hot and dry, the area receives some of that cooling effect in the form of fog coming from San Pablo Bay. As mentioned before, grapes for the original wine that shook the world came from newly planted vineyard S.L.V, meaning Stag S.L.V vineyard. The 1973 vintage was actually blended with small proportions of Merlot, which is sometimes done to rounden the edges of Cabernet Sauvignon, which could otherwise be very structured and quite dense. Unfortunately, I do not have here 1973 vintage, nor have I ever tasted it. However, I do have the 2012 vintage, which I bought directly at the estate many years ago. According to them, it is 100% Cabernet Sauvignon. And a fun fact, the 1973 vintage was released at estate price of $6 per bottle, while current price of this bottle is around $200. Now that we know the legend behind this wine, let's taste it and see what is so special about it. It is a deeply colored, serious wine. Actually, quite interesting, on the color, it does not say it is 12 years old. I mean, it is ruby and there is this slight hint of garnet on the outer rim, but that's it. Probably by looking at the color, I would never guess that this is 2012 vintage. This is 12-year-old wine. This is something that I've noticed with Bordeaux and I've noticed with Napa Cabernet a lot, is that these wines always seem younger than they are. And on the nose, it is quite perfumed. It does show these really ripe black fruits like cassis and blackberry, black cherries, hints of plum. but there's layers and layers and layers of expensive wood like tobacco leaf, cedar wood. There's even some minerality to it like crushed stones or graphite. Some herbal hints like garrigue. Yeah, the nose is definitely quite complex. It is not something that is one-dimensional, you know, like fruit bomb, which sometimes you can expect in some of the Napa wines. Definitely not this style. So let's taste it. Wow, on the nose, it seemed really rich and kind of this ultra ripe. But when you taste it, you have this nice backbone of acidity. It is definitely refreshing. It is full-bodied wine, but it does not seem, you know, heavy in any way. The acidity lifts it up. Tannins, nicely done, beautiful tannins. And I think this is something that I've noticed in Californian wines in general. The tannins are always much more approachable in their youth. They just seem riper. And here, of course, you feel that there are a lot of tannins, but they're really ripe. They're kind of rounded and definitely not edgy or spiky. Let's taste that wine again. One thing though, it does have that warmth coming from sunny climate. So I do feel that alcohol a little bit. But then again, this was my first sip on this day, so maybe I'm a bit sensitive. That could also be the case, but I do feel a bit warming sensation sitting on my palate. I think it is amazing wine, and what a surprise that, I mean, being 12 years of age, it is still so fresh and lively. I don't think it could live for another 20 years, but I think next 10 years, 8-10 years would be quite easy for this wine. The reason behind is because tannins are actually quite matured at this level. Maybe after 5 or 6 years, the presence of oak could calm down, allowing fruit to shine a bit more. But overall, I think first, this wine represents greatly where it is coming from. It is sunny, it is warm, and it just shows that fruit ripeness, which we all, which is why we go to Napa. And the second of all, this wine shows great aging potential. There's not a lot of wines that can age for 20 or more years, and I mean, it is still so generous. It is, you know, not really tired at all, and it is 12-year-old wine, so amazing. I will give this wine 92 points. When I was reading about Judgement of Paris, many wine experts actually place this wine in France. I not necessarily think that it tastes of France. I think it represents its terroir, which great wine must do. You want to know where it's coming from when you are tasting it, when you are smelling it. And I think that is one of the greatest parts of a fine wine. It is a great legacy to the label and the winemaker Warren Winiarski, who unfortunately just recently has passed away, but his legend and his idea and his dreams are still living on. Let me know in the comments if you have tried this wine, what you think of it, or maybe there are other wines I should pay more attention from Napa. And make sure to watch my other video, What's So Special About Sassicaia.